Okay, I'll call this meeting to order. I'd like to welcome you all here, and I'll ask Cari to bring the opening, please.
Thank you. The past week has been a time of shock, disbelief, dismay, and outrage at the attacks in Paris last Friday. It was horrifying to watch the fear and terror on the faces of those affected and feeling powerless to do anything to help. The beautiful city of Paris was turned into a dark, deadly place instead of its beautiful combination of art, architecture, and cultural beauty. I visited Paris about 15 years ago, and I will never forget the sprawling city. The view from above was breathtaking. There was the Sacré-Cœur, the Sacred Heart Church, that stood like a white beacon among the many apartments and business centers. There were beautiful parks, gated with ornate black fencing, with mothers and fathers pushing strollers and enjoying the green beauty of the city parks. Even the cemeteries in the center of the city hold their own place of beauty, with ornate stone monuments and statues and walkways among the trees. Of course, there is the Louvre, that endless collection of priceless antiquities and art. I could spend a week in that place alone. There is so much to see and do in the City of Light, and you need time and patience to experience it all. The people are elegant too, with women and men dressed with effortless casual chic, making me aware of my own prairie fashion and its lack of French sophistication. The streets are narrow, and people park in any tiny space, on sidewalks and alleyways, and the shops that line the market streets display breathtaking arrangements of cheese and sausages, breads and pastries. I recall being engaged in conversation about personal freedom as I sipped a café au lait at a tiny sidewalk restaurant. The Parisians are passionate about liberty, equality, and fraternity, and it still appears to enter their conversations in the present day, as strongly as it did many years ago during the French Revolution. They are a proud, passionate, and strong people, and even now, in spite of this, have shown resiliency and strength in the wake of the attacks. As Canada responds to these attacks on our Western ally, it is my hope and prayer that we can again be a nation that stands for them, that stands for justice, peace, and solidarity in the wake of this tragedy. In the past, this country has demonstrated our support for those affected by war, famine, and natural calamity, and I believe we can do it again. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cari. It was nice to have a little bit of a glimpse as to what Paris was, and hopefully they can return to that in the near future. Okay, on to item number 3 here. Can I please have a motion to adopt the agenda? Councillor Swagstra, Councillor Susan Penner. Any discussion? Call for the question. All in favor? That is carried. Okay, could I please have a motion to approve the minutes of the organizational meeting held November 3rd? Councillor Cari Penner, second by Councillor Funk. Any discussion? All in favor? That is carried. Okay. Can I please have a motion to approve the minutes of the November 3rd council meeting? Councillor Siemens, Councillor O'Funk. Any discussion? Call for the question. All in favor? That is carried. We have no business arising from the minutes, so we'll go to the public hearing at 7:35. So I'll close the council meeting and open the public hearing. Mr. Warkentine, could you introduce this, please?
Yes, Mr. Deputy Mayor and members of council. This public hearing is being convened to hear the city's application for Special Service Plan 2016-1 and related bylaw 2059 for the renewal of the residential curbside waste collection service provided in the city of Steinbach. Notices as required under the Municipal Act have been issued. There is presently one written objection that the city has received, as was provided to members of council just prior to this meeting. The purpose of this rate review and bylaw again is to continue the residential curbside waste collection service As noted in the notice to residents receiving the service, the current service is provided at the rate of $123 per year per residence. The proposal for successive years 2016 through 2018 is proposing increases to $126, $129, and $133 respectively, which is approximately a 2.5% annual increase. Recommendation is that Council approve second reading, and subject to any further information being provided at the public hearing. And with that approval, the bylaw and special service plan would also require submission to the Manitoba Municipal Board for final approval before Council could proceed with third reading.
Thank you, Mr. Workington. Does anyone else want to speak to this bylaw? Anyone want to speak? One more time, does anyone want to speak to this bylaw? If not, then I'll close the public hearing and open the council meeting. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councillor Swagstra?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I'll make the motion that we approve second reading of bylaw 2059.
Anybody want to second that? Councillor Siemens? Okay. Do you want to speak to it?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I think it's appropriate that we move ahead with this. This is not a new levy. It's just simply a renewal of a levy that we have in place that covers the cost of curbside collection. One of the services that's provided in Steinbach is that we collect the garbage, and this is a service that we do very well as a city. What this does is it states that the total annual cost will next year go up from $123 to $126, and then $3 the next year and $4 the next. Small increases just to make sure that we're keeping, that we're covering the actual cost of the program, but I think it's appropriate that we move ahead with this.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I think this is good too. We need to, there are additional costs for wages and equipment ongoing, so I think it is important that we do small incremental increases each year. It should also be noted, I don't think it was noted, that there's also a written objection in our files that will have to be dealt with through some form before we can do third reading. But in this case, I agree with second reading.
Any other discussion? Council, I think that it's a modest increase, and you're right, there was a written objection on file, so we can't do third reading, which we wouldn't be able to do anyways because this is has to go to the municipal board anyway. So I'll ask for the question, and all in favor of second reading? It's carried. So once Mr. Working, once we've got the municipal board, it'll come back to council for third reading then, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, at this time we want to welcome our delegation from Western Region Cement Association of Canada. Representing them is Mr. Justin Arnott, who is a power engineer and a director of markets and technical affairs. Mr. Arnott, please take the podium as everything is recorded so for future reference. And you'll have our undivided attention for 10 minutes.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor and members of council. On behalf of the Cement Association of Canada and our members, I thank you very much for this time to hear what I would consider a pretty important message. Like I was introduced, my name is Justin Arnott. I'm a director of markets and technical affairs. So basically anywhere that cement meets the market, that's what I get involved with. I do a lot of work with our allies being ready-mix concrete, concrete pipe, masonry block, things like that. So just to start off, so everybody's familiar, there's a lot of sometimes confusion between cement and concrete. The example we like to use is if cement is the flour, then concrete is the cake. So I represent 7 companies in Canada that actually produce cement powder. However, there are a whole host of other companies and producers out there that produce concrete as well. So why are we here? The Cement Association of Canada is actually undertaking an initiative right now. It's an outreach program. We call it 200 meetings in 200 days. We're basically going around the country trying to get in front of as many mayors and councils as well as engineers and architects and other decision makers to talk about the benefits of concrete and cement infrastructure. Obviously, generally most people are familiar with cement and concrete. One of the things that we like to say is that you're never really more than about 4 feet from concrete infrastructure, whether that's sidewalk or underground pipe or building infrastructure. But I'd like to talk about what we do as an industry in terms of climate change and sustainability, how we can look at cement and concrete infrastructure and how it can help us reach our further sustainability and infrastructure goals. And really what we want to do is start a dialogue, create some collaboration between our industry as well as the municipalities to see where there's some advantages for everyone. We like to start off about our industry. Truly, concrete is a local industry just by the nature of the product. We're lucky we've got 2 production facilities that produce the cement powder in the prairies, both in Alberta. Anyone who's driven towards Banff has obviously seen the Lafarge Exshaw plant across Lac d'Arcs. There's also another production facility in Edmonton as well. The 2 companies of the 7 that are in Western Canada are Lafarge Holcim as well as Lehigh Hansen. However, as I said, cement is really just one portion of concrete. The rest of the mixtures are water, sand, aggregate, and of course local jobs. And all of those products come from generally within 200 kilometers of a given project, at least within 500 kilometers. So when you do specify concrete infrastructure, you're specifying a local product. It's local sand, local water, local aggregate. So here on the prairies, that's a pretty big impact. There's about 65,000 direct and indirect jobs in between everywhere from the cement plants down to the concrete producers, truck drivers, things like that. Concrete is next to water. I don't know. Concrete next to water is the second most used commodity in the planet. So for every man, woman, and child on Earth, there was about 3,000 kilograms of concrete poured last year, and that's likely just to increase. Our companies, realizing that it is a strategic commodity, are doing everything they can for corporate responsibility. So really trying to produce as high quality products as possible on the cutting edge of environmental design and investing a lot of money in research and development for sustainable products as well as new innovative products for our infrastructure, and really trying to promote and advance the climate resilience of communities. Just by the nature of the product alone, it is a very resilient and robust building component. So our industry is committed to greenhouse gas reduction, and one thing that not a lot of people realize is how energy and CO2 intensive cement production is. On a worldwide basis, it's approximately anywhere from 1% to 5% of the total CO2 emissions, like I said, worldwide. However, in Canada, we've realized this. We realized the trend of moving to a low-carbon future, and voluntarily, we've been able to reduce our emissions by 15% since 1990. So part of the problem with cement production is that part of the chemistry of producing cement releases CO2. You're basically, in as simple terms as possible, mining limestone, and what we use out here on the prairies is limestone that comes from the Rocky Mountains. You mine limestone, you take it to a temperature of roughly about 1,500 degrees C, and bleed off CO2. So 60% of the CO2 emissions that come from cement production are what we would call irreducible until we find another product that can be used as a cementitious paste. The other 40% are used in combustion to get us to those high temperatures. And that's where we're really trying to make reductions through heat recovery, efficiencies. We've also developed a new type of cement called Portland limestone cement, or what we've branded it here in Canada as Contempora, and it actually changes the production process and results in approximately 10% CO2 reduction on the total. The manufacturers here in Canada have stepped up to the plate and said that there will be no price differential between this Contempora cement as well as what you call normal GU, and so we're really pushing as an industry to make Contempora cement the go-to product for all infrastructure projects here in Canada. Also do things like eco-certification for concrete batch plants, and one of the other aspects and avenues that we've been working on with provincial governments as well as municipalities is looking at where our waste streams go to do fuel substitution. Right now, most of the cement plants in Canada are burning coal to get to their temperature. We want to get off of coal, and to do that we need the help of municipalities as well as provincial governments to regulate waste streams. Basically anything that that has a caloric value that's going into a landfill could be burned in a cement kiln and used to produce cement. And one of the benefits of burning waste in a cement kiln is that there is no bottom ash. Everything that goes into the kiln comes out as clinker, which is eventually made into cement as well. So already our industry has looked at everything from tires to construction waste to the fluff from diapers to K-cups and all kinds of things like that. So really the point is, on an industry level, we're really trying to show that not only are we talking the talk, but we're also walking the walk. We're doing everything that we can to squeeze out every greenhouse gas reduction that we possibly can. We see that the way that the trends are going, moving towards a low carbon future. Obviously the new federal government here in Canada has ambitious goals and about to set new ambitious goals with the Conference of the Parties coming in France, and as well as the meeting of the First Ministers here on Monday. So we expect that this will start to impact local decision making on every level, trying to get greenhouse gas reduction. And so where can you find this? And in Canada, on average, you can see that greenhouse gas emissions generally come from about a third from industry, a third from transportation, and a third from buildings. If we try to saddle industry alone with the reductions of CO2, we're just not going to get to these ambitious goals, sometimes as high as 80% reduction by 2050. So we really need to start looking at the other sectors of the economy where we can start to see greenhouse gas reduction. And that's really what I just try to promote to you guys today, and raise some awareness that there are a lot of avenues for greenhouse gas reduction with the other infrastructure, being transportation and buildings, and concrete can provide those avenues. So if we want to talk about concrete buildings, really it's a very energy efficient construction material due to the nature of the product. There's what we call a thermal mass. If you look to City of Winnipeg, Manitoba Hydro Place is probably the most energy efficient office building in the world. And one of the reasons is because it utilizes the thermal mass of concrete as well as solar chimneys and things like that. Manitoba Hydro Place, for buildings its size, sees a roughly about 70% reduction in energy cost over a comparable building. Other aspects about concrete infrastructure is it's non-combustible. It's really one of the safest building materials that you can build buildings out of. It's not subject to rot or mold, rain or wind or flood damage. It's a very robust and resilient material. It's quieter. A lot of markets now with concrete condo buildings are marketing based on the fact that it's a concrete building, that you won't be able to hear your neighbors in the middle of the night, that there is a lot of sound attenuation, but there's also a lot of other passive aspects as well, such as emissions free. There's very, very low VOC, and in fact we've teamed up with other nonprofits like the Asthma Association to really push concrete construction for affordable housing and things to that nature. So what we've been asking cities to do is look at energy efficiency any way they can. Programs like the LEED energy efficient buildings are obviously great programs. We're encouraging their use not only on the municipal level, but encouraging the developments in that municipality to go to a LEED standard as well. We would really like to see the combination of the energy code and the building code, so not just look at the safety of a given development, but also look at the energy and sustainability of that development. Like I said, we really believe that Contempora can be the go-to product for any kind of concrete infrastructure. Please don't take me wrong, we're not saying that concrete is the golden goose and that mandate all infrastructure to be concrete or all buildings to be concrete, but when you do have concrete infrastructure, switching to Contempora cement will get you that greenhouse gas reduction right off the hop. As well, one of the other big things that we've really been trying to promote is the look at life cycle cost assessments. Obviously, near-term cost pressures aren't going to go away anytime soon. However, looking at the cost savings that can happen by resilient and durable infrastructure over the lifespan of that building, that road, that what have you, can offer a lot of savings as well. The other aspect is obviously concrete pavements, and Manitoba has traditionally been one of the strongest markets for concrete pavements in Canada, and we continue to see that today. And even driving into Steinbach this evening, nice to go down the main drag and see beautiful concrete pavements, and it's something that you don't get to see the further west you go. There's definitely less and less concrete pavements as you move further west, which is something that I personally am trying to change and see more resilient infrastructure. But for all the functional benefits of a concrete pavement, the fact that it lasts as long as it does, the fact that you generally don't see potholes when it's constructed properly, there's all kinds of sustainability issues as well. One of the simplest to understand is that concrete is a rigid pavement, whereas asphalt is a flexible pavement. That means when vehicles such as transport trucks or even your own car travel on concrete, they sit on top of that surface, whereas on a flexible pavement, those vehicles will actually ride into the surface a little bit, which means you're constantly driving uphill, that fraction of amount. However, we've teamed up with some of the best names in the business, like Massachusetts Institute of Technology, to do studies on this, and they've seen a benefit of anywhere from 3 to 7% fuel mileage improvement on a concrete pavement. And while 3 to 7% doesn't sound that much, if you think about all the transport trucks that are on our roadways, it does come down to a lot of greenhouse gas emission reduction. Lower lighting requirements, just by the nature of the product, that concrete is gray versus asphalt, which is black. You actually get about a 24% increase in albedo. It uses 66% less energy to build and maintain over a 50-year life cycle, and that's typically what we like to talk about as a minimum with any kind of concrete infrastructure, would be a 50-year lifespan before looking at any major redevelopment or re-maintenance. And on a whole, concrete pavements can save roughly about 12,000 tons of greenhouse gases per kilometer compared to a functionally equivalent asphalt pavement. There's also all kinds of other innovations in concrete. One of the ones we like to talk about with municipalities is called pervious concrete. It's actually set up much like a Rice Krispie square, so it actually allows rainwater to pass through it. And what this does is allows you to keep some of the rainwater out of the pipe and allow for groundwater recharge. So you can basically increase the sustainability. They call it a low impact development application of concrete. These pavements are actually starting to perform quite well. They were probably developed about 10 or 12 years ago. Got a little bit of a bad rap because we were just getting our heads around them. The main thing that you need to worry about is make sure that they're free draining. And even in climates like Manitoba here, you can have functional pervious pavement. For example, they're very well sought after in parks, parking lots, things like that. So low use where you're looking to provide sustainability and green initiatives. So, like I said, hopefully I can keep this to a small cup type presentation, but in closing, the things that we really are pushing with municipalities all across Canada, our focus is on energy efficiency. LEED is a great example of that. Like I said, Manitoba Hydro Place being the only LEED Platinum, the highest level that you can meet of an office building here in North America. Look at considering concrete for selected uses such as roads and pavements. That doesn't mean concrete pavements make sense everywhere, but where they do make sense, they generally make a lot of sense. Things like high-use intersections, roundabouts, where you don't want to be closing traffic and doing maintenance very frequently. Put in a long-life concrete pavement, and that problem is definitely attenuated. Use Contempora or Portland limestone cement where it makes sense as well. We're going through the testing to make sure that it can handle the conditions that we see here on the prairies. We expect that testing, usually they're about a 2 or 3 year robust testing setup, and we're about right in the middle of that. So within the next 2 to 3 years, Contempora cement should be available to replace any of the GU or general use cement powders, and we would like to see municipalities mandate their use for concrete infrastructure, and as well continue to engage with our association as well as the local Ready Mix Association of Manitoba, Concrete Pipe and Precast Associations on how we can use concrete infrastructure to meet your infrastructure needs as well as our sustainability challenges going forward. I think that's all I have to try and keep things down to a cool 10 minutes, hopefully.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Arnott. Is there any, Councillor, do you have any questions of Mr. Arnott at all at this time? Councillor Cari.
Just a couple of comments. Thank you for the information on the future that we can expect to see in the cement and concrete industry. It's quite interesting that the attempts are being made to be environmentally conscious with the product. I was especially happy to hear about the pervious concrete that you talked about. As our city is growing and growing in density as well, we're finding new challenges with drainage and water flow and things like that. And if the future it brings us a concrete that will help drain cities more effectively and efficiently, that would be a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cari Penner. Any other questions? Councillor Susan Penner.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. I just wanted to touch on the LEED certification. In my experience, it's a significant cost difference between doing a LEED certified project versus a non-LEED certified project. From the information I've read, to the point where the cost benefit, there isn't really, by the time you make up the cost in the capital, by your savings, it's an extensive period of time. So I'm just wondering, it's one thing for Hydro Crown Corporation to be able to do LEED standards. It's a lot more difficult for municipality, and I just was wondering your comments on that.
No,
The argument for that would be to move in that direction.
the argument for that is to be the smart application of the LEED standard. So LEED is no different than any other kind of standard or certification level, where a lot of times it becomes a goal to have, and it doesn't necessarily go just towards the goal of the energy efficiency. A lot of times a building or a developer will try to get a LEED status and do it as cheap as possible, and when you do it even as cheap as possible, basically what I'm saying is when you move away from the goal of the energy efficiency and efficient design and really just go for that rubber stamp of, oh, now it's a LEED building, you definitely don't see the benefits that come with true life cycle analysis and the cost benefits that you accumulate over time. And a lot of these infrastructures, as a society here in Canada and somewhat all over, we're moving away from generational buildings. So really and truly, especially with the municipality, a lot of houses now, the standards that they're being built to, even the National Building Code, can somewhat be considered more of a disposable house. The houses are only meant to last 30, 50 years before there needs to be some kind of major renovation, whereas we've come from a standard, if you look at Europe, for example, there's a lot of concrete homes that are going to survive generations, and they build it specifically so that your children and their grandchildren are going to live in that house to that standard. And really, that's where you see the main benefits. And when you're looking for robust and life cycle benefits for applications like LEED. And you're right, there is definitely a cost up front. The idea is that those costs are mitigated as you move through because it is a more efficient building. So in terms of the yearly maintenance and yearly energy costs, you'd see that. But it's a very good comment, and that's one of the reasons why LEED continues to evolve to try and obviously assuage some of those concerns. And concrete infrastructure, we're working with the Canadian Green Building Council to move towards a rating system that accomplishes the goal that it achieves and moves away from just a rubber stamp. This is what you get.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Arnott. I think you've challenged our thinking. You've given us all some information that we can probably go home and digest, and we'll see where it takes us from here. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll go to item number 9. I actually was going to mention something on our agenda. There was 2 number 7s, so after number 7 we're going to bump them all up one. So we're going to go to number 9 now. There's no reports or recommendation from the city manager, so we'll go to the next item, which is accounts payable. Could I have a motion to accept these, please? Councillor Cari Penner, Councillor Siemens, seconded. Any discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Okay. Could I please have a motion to accept the excavator license on page 13? Councillor Susan Penner, Councillor Swagstra seconds it.
No discussion.
No discussion. I'll call for the question. All in favor? That is carried. Could I have a motion to accept the building permits on page 18, please? Councillor Susan Penner, second by Councillor Siemens. Any discussion?
Yeah, I just wanted to make one comment. That a building permit has been taken out for a new soccer park building, and that's something that's been long awaited. It will have washrooms and change rooms for the soccer park, so I think that'll provide a big benefit. It's something I guess, been a long time coming, so I'm happy that that's going to be happening.
Thank you very much. Council, we had nearly $4 million in building permits for October, and that brings our total for the year to just over $33 million, so I think that's good. So I'll call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Could I have a motion to cancel 2015 supplemental realty tax listed on page 19? Councillor Cari Penner. Councillor Earl Funk seconds that. Any discussion?
No.
I'll call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Are there any questions of council? Councillor Funk.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, to administration. In the last couple of weeks, a letter's been circulated to our business community, and it was about the mobile sign bylaw. Well, that created a lot of objections and emails and in personal visits. And I just wanted to ask the question if there was any further action or different action to be taken by administration in this time or in the near future.
Well, as for Councillor Funk's and the rest of Council's consideration, administration reviewed the requirements of the city's zoning bylaw 2055 that was more recently reviewed by Council and approved in August of this year. Based on the findings, the content of the notice issued to the respective mobile sign users within the city of Steinbach was sent out with the intent that to bring the use of those mobile signs into compliance with the current city zoning bylaw that exists right now.
Okay, do you have some comments?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. On this topic, and I'll ask the question to you and administration as well. We've all heard the concerns about the mobile sign bylaw as Councillor, or regulations, as Councillor Funk has alluded to. Can I get assurance that we will, at the next council meeting, be reviewing these regulations and taking a close look at this? Because I will say for the record, I think that we need to take a serious look at what these regulations and also consider some changes. So can I get assurance that at the next meeting we are going to get full information and going to review this the bylaw?
Thank you very much, Councillor Swagstra. I believe the mayor has asked administration to put this on the agenda for the December 1st meeting. As was mentioned already, we've all had a considerable amount of feedback when the announcement was made that the city would be starting to enforce existing bylaws regarding mobile signs. This bylaw has been in existence for quite a few years, but I think there was probably no flags because enforcement hadn't taken place. So for the next meeting, administration is going to provide council with more information about this bylaw and how this will look in the future with enforcement. Then when we will look at it and try to mitigate the effect on small businesses in the city. I think most of the people that were affected by this bylaw would be small business, and we want to ensure small business that we are open to small business. We appreciate small business, and we will do everything in our power to make sure that they are looked after. So that is what we're going to be doing. So it will be on the agenda for December 1st meeting, and we will have a chance to discuss it there. Correct? Okay.
Just one quick follow-up. Just at that meeting, we're obviously, as we do this review and as we get the background information, maybe this is more to administration at this point. When we're taking a look at options, are we going to be getting a variety of options that, if council chooses to make some changes, are we going to have some options before us in terms of some possibilities?
I suppose that in the absence of some specific direction that's provided in advance, I could possibly provide some possible areas that council may wish to consider for the subsequent meeting. But barring any particular reference or recommendation from council, what I would be prepared to do is provide a complete background and chronology and all the pertinent information for council's consideration, so that if city council chooses to make any subsequent amendment to the city zoning bylaw, that those steps could be taken in due course.
Just a quick follow-up, if I could. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. So then, obviously, part of this would be taking a look at all the correspondence the city's received. I know that as members of council we've received correspondence, and also there's been some correspondence that's gone directly to administration. As part of that information, we'll have a summary in terms of what some of what the primary concerns are. I mean, I think that sort of gives us some direction in terms of possible options if we're going to accommodate some of the concerns that are addressed. So I'm sort of assuming that those are some of the areas that we're going to be looking at some options.
That summary could be provided for council, absolutely.
Okay, any other comments on that? Okay, thank you very much. So, okay, then we'll go to correspondence and petitions. The first one is a letter from Barbara Friesen. It is found on page 20 and has a request regarding a walking path in the Clearsprings area. Council, do you wish to take any action on it at this time? I don't see anybody putting their hand up, so I think this deals with an area immediately to the west of the area we're planning to hard surface. The reference is made here to the work that we're going to be doing there in 2016, and this really doesn't touch that at all. So this, I think that would have to be done in a separate plan, and right now I believe that we simply haven't got the funds. It's not in our budget to do that, but I think we would want to keep that in our sights so that we can look at that in the future, because it is somewhat of a dangerous area there. So it's a bit of a reminder for us. So, okay, on page 22, we have a letter from Youth for Christ Steinbach with a request. Do you want to take any action on this letter, Council? I don't see anybody putting their hands up here either, so I think this council stopped issuing operating grants a few years ago, and I believe that this council remains committed to that position, and so I think we'll take that as information. Okay, on Minister of Local Government, page 23, this is an annual municipal support grant we receive from the province each year, and we'll take this as information as well. So there's no other business, so I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Oh, sorry.
Excuse me. Have we excused Mayor Gertson from the meeting?
I'm sorry. No, we did not.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Councillor Cari Penner makes that motion to excuse Mayor Gertson. Second, Councillor Siemens. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much for reminding me of that. I did have it in my notes, but I wasn't referring to it at that time. So then I need a motion to adjourn. We had that already, sorry. Was it Councillor Cari Penner, Councillor Siemens, right? All in favor? It's carried.